Now, folks, we're about to dive into something truly special. Imagine carrying a legacy so profound that it's written into the history books. That's the story of our next speaker, Lynne Jackson. She's not just the great-great-granddaughter of Dred and Harriet Scott. She's a bridge from their fight for freedom into our lives today. So let's get ready to be moved, inspired, and connected through her extraordinary story. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lynne Jackson.
Wow. Good morning. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending my session at RootsTech 2024. Thank you for joining. Thank you for having me. Today, we're going to share a wonderful story that is of remembrance and inspiration, and I'm quite privileged and honored to be the one that gets to share it. In 1995, I heard my Heavenly Father say to me, "You should study Dred Scott." And I said out loud, "Yeah, I should know more than the average person." So I embarked on a study of my own, which in 2007, my earthly father, who you see here, Dr. John Madison Jr., said to me, "You are the only one who could do this." And he had been the family historian all the years before. So I embarked on a storyline that I had no clue how important it was. None of us really understood until the 150th anniversary how courageous and how amazing our ancestors really were to do what they did all those many years ago. Dred and Harriet Scott fought for their freedom, which became the freedom of so many other people. But they had an 11-year ordeal with 5 court proceedings that took them all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, only to hear Chief Justice Taney say to them, "You're not a citizen." He threw the case out. They had no standing in court. And he further said that they had no rights that whites were bound to respect. And sadly, he said that they were beings of an inferior order, so far inferior that they shouldn't even associate with the white race. They said some other things that allowed slavery to be coast to coast if it had not been fought. And yet, Dred and Harriet persisted. Dred had been born on the plantation of Peter and Elizabeth Blow in Southampton, Virginia. They had 11 children, and several of them, the 3 that you see here in particular, Taylor, Henry, and Charlotte, were very instrumental in helping Dred and Harriet all those years of their case. The father had owned slaves, but the children never did. And they even helped Dred past his death. As it turns out, it's a wonderful story. I wish we had a little more time, but Dred and Harriet were actually bought by Taylor Blow with the express purpose of freeing them from the owners that had been holding him. And what you see here, oh, thank you. Yeah, I think that's pretty special. What you see here is a copy of the freedom licenses that Taylor Blow paid $1,000 each for Dred and Harriet so that they could exercise their freedom. This is a picture of the old courthouse in St. Louis, where on April the 6th, 1846, they started their case, which ended on March 6th of 1857. Their case was a major catalyst for the Civil War. And we all know the history of Abraham Lincoln, although you may not know that he decided not to get out of politics when he heard the Dred Scott decision and consequently became the 16th president. But after the war and after his assassination, he had already put in place for the 13th Amendment to abolish slavery. And then the 14th Amendment overturns the Dred Scott decision in a sense that it gave citizenship to all who were born in America, especially enslaved Americans. And then it wouldn't be right unless you had the 15th Amendment, which gave them the right to vote. Of course, we're talking about men, not women, until 1920. But the Dred Scott amendments came out of the Dred Scott decision. So fast forward just a little bit, the family history of Dred and Harriet. They had 2 daughters. You see Eliza and Lizzie, and obviously I descend from one of them. But a funny story is that all the years until we started doing the work for the foundation, we thought it was the wrong daughter. So one wonderful lady in St. Louis, Ruth Ann Hager, a certified genealogist, now retired, wanted to do a brief pamphlet on Harriet. And somehow she was connected with me. I gave her a name. I gave her the name Wilson Madison. Most people did not know. She was able to find the right Harriet, but she found so much more that it turned into this beautiful quintessential book, which is the Dred and Harriet Scott family story. And it is amazing. We coordinated with it together, and a few other people helped. But this book tells the family story, and that in itself is a whole nother issue, but it's a beautiful thing. From Dred Scott and the 2 daughters, Eliza is my great-grandmother. The etching that you see is my great-grandfather. So I always tell people the easy way to remember it is that Dred Scott's grandson is my grandfather. His name was John Alexander Madison. In the picture in the center, you see my grandmother, his wife, with 4 of their 7 children. And then the next picture, you see my grandmother again, my mother, and yes, that's me, little. And we are standing at the place where Dred Scott was buried, which happened after he had been at another cemetery, but Taylor Blow moved him from that cemetery, which was about to be abandoned, to Calvary Cemetery, and he lay in an unmarked grave here for 90 years. Father Edward Dowling, a Jesuit priest, was going through the records at Calvary and located Dred Scott just by accident, his lot number. So he's sharing that with our family. This was in Ebony magazine about 1957, I believe. And so from that, he said that I would like to erect a small headstone in his honor. However, if anyone ever wants to do more one day, they will at least know where he lies. So from that, we were able to get this beautiful marker, and it was about 28 inches high, 24 inches wide. That's my dad and my uncle Dred Scott laying a wreath for the first time that Dred Scott's grave had ever been marked since his death. And so from that time, Mrs. Harrison decided that she, as a granddaughter of Taylor Blow, wanted to be the one to buy that marker, and she did so. The lady you see there is Susan Blow, by the way, who was the granddaughter of Henry Blow, and thank you for that. And she is the woman who started the first kindergarten in the United States, so that's part of the Blow family. Beautiful people they are. This is a family portrait. It's really the only heirloom we have. It's a charcoal drawing of Dred and Harriet. I don't have the exact date on it, but we think it goes back at least to 1860 because it was found with one of the boys, one of the grandsons of Dred Scott, as they sat as orphans on a curb. And this is very special. Thanks to Linda Buggs Sims and Jim Vincent, we have from the from the Blow family Bible, a line that says, Sam, a Negro boy born from a son of January of 1756. What people don't know is that Dred Scott was born Sam Blow. And so in the family Bible, they recorded their slaves. And the gentleman who owned the Bible also told his family that they should not treat their slaves poorly. And as you can see, they did not. This is a copy of our family Bible that Grandmother Grace passed on to me. It's over 1,000 pictures in this page, 2,000-page Bible, and I treasure it. In 2006, I started the Dred Scott Heritage Foundation to commemorate the 150th anniversary. And from that, we decided that commemoration, education, and reconciliation would be our pillars. And of course, that came from upstairs, too. So we commemorated it, as well as we erected the first and only statue of Dred and Harriet Scott, which is outside the old courthouse in St. Louis. Appreciate that. Education speaks for itself, but reconciliation is a very powerful thing that we do. The sons and daughters of reconciliation are represented here, and you can see that we have descendants from Jefferson Davis, Thomas Jefferson, Dred Scott, as well as the Blow family, and not only that, but the Tawney family. In 2017, Charlie Tawney, a great-great-nephew of Justice Tawney, did a public apology to our family and to all people, and we did that in front of the statue of his ancestor. Fast forwarding, we also have, I'm not doing that, I'm sorry. Back to the next screen. So fast forwarding, we are sharing the new headstone. Remember Father Dowling said, if anyone ever wants to do more, they at least know where he lies. So it had always been in my heart that people should know him, and the marker did not say much. So this one was erected on September 30th in Calvary Cemetery. It is engraved on the front and the back. His image is there, scriptures are there. We were trying to do it on September 17th because that's the day he died. It has subsequently become Constitution Day, and for that reason, we honor him with a 9-foot-high black granite 10 by 10. And let me say this, Taylor Blow bought 3 grave sites, so this would be here today, because back then you could not bury a black person next to a white person. So what the devil meant for evil, God meant for good. Yeah. It's been 18 years, and I can only tell you the journey has been a miracle. So the one thing on this page I want to share with you is that there is no stamp of Dred Scott. We should all say boo, because that's disgraceful. And yet we have to have a petition drive, signature petition drive, so we invite you to do that and help us to get those signatures in and influence the powers that be, because Dred Scott should have a stamp. Bart Simpson has one, by the way, and so does Scooby-Doo. We don't like that very much. Harriet Scott's marker is here as well. That was donated in 2006, and she's buried in Greenwood Cemetery. I want to thank all of you for attending today and hearing my story, but most of all, I want to encourage everybody out there, and I don't think I have to tell you guys, do your homework. We found out that 2 babies were buried with Dred and Harriet in their graves. We did not know that until Ruth Ann Hager started to do her work. So be encouraged, use the resources that are here, and love one another and enjoy this journey, because RootsTech 2024 is an amazing thing, and we are so blessed to be here today. God bless and thank you. Bless you. Thank you.